Hi everyone, Raquel here from scrapcosy. In today's video I'll be doing one of my favorite things, a vintage notebook. It's been a while since I created one of these. Well, actually I think it's been a while since I created anything. So since I was finding it hard to start creating again, I decided to go for a project that didn't need too much thinking, because every time that I create one of these I kind of follow the same steps, so I didn't have to think too much. The hardest thing was actually selecting the stamps. I wanted to play with a lot of them, so I choose a few. First I'm going to start with ESC22, and I'm selecting that part of the stamp set, those flowers, because they are going to be my focal point that I normally like to add at the bottom right corner. And I stamp it there with Versamark ink because I'm going to put some gold embossing powder. This is a metallic gold rich pale, super fine, and I'm just adding it there, and then I'll melt it with the heat gun. I'm making sure that there's nothing sticking anywhere, and then I'll put back all that powder in the jar, and then I'll start melting the powder. So this is a normal speed, but then I will speed it up because this is a bit, slow process. But once the heat tool is hot, then it becomes super fast. And it's always so nice watching the powder melting. Okay, so now I'm going to add more details, and I'm using ESC23. I'm selecting one of the butterflies, and I'm going to again do the same, stamp with some embossing ink. This one is from WoW. I said it was Versamark, but it's from WoW, but it's the same kind of ink that allows you to actually use embossing powders, because it takes a long time to dry. So now I'm just putting that powder over there, and I'm going to do the same. I will melt the powders with the heat tool. And then I basically have the front kind of done in terms of powders and decorations. That will be the basic design. Now I'm going to create some ephemera. I'm going to use those postage stamps from these two stamp sets, and then the label. So I think this one is ESC21, then this one over here is ESC19, and this one is ESC15. So that one doesn't stick very well because it's a very large one and it's old and it's a bit dirty, so I'm just using my trick of putting some embossing ink on the acrylic block, and then it sticks. You could clean it, of course, and it may be better, but I'm just using that trick. And now with Versafine Clear ink, I'm just going to stamp that stamp. I'm taking my time, pressing really hard, and then you get all that detail. So I'm going to repeat the same with the other stripe, and then I'll have some postage stamps that I can cut and use. I think I didn't use the second one now that I think of, but well, those stamps will be there ready to use for another project. Now I'm stamping the label, and then I'm applying some embossing powder there. I'm using Decadent Ruby, one of the powders that I designed for WoW recently. And now I'm using Golden Sands infusions, which are those pigment powders that I dissolve with water. And then I'm creating like a wash out on top of those those stamps, and that will be like a quick way to add some color. It's a base just because I'm going to add more colors on top, and I'm going to watercolor everything. I really enjoy adding color this way. It's very quick, and I don't know, it's very relaxing to actually paint them that way. For that one I'm using slate blue, which is a blue basically, and these powders, the infusions, they have walnut crystals on them, so you kind of get a blue, but it's in a vintage style because that walnut crystals adds some sort of muted tone to them, which I love because that's totally my style, right? And now I'm putting a little bit more Golden Sands, and then Sunset Beach will be my red, and then I'm just spritzing water and dissolving everything so then I can paint. So now I'm adding the red touches here and there, And every time that I change color, of course I clean the brush. When I design my stamps, I really like to incorporate some stuff that you can actually use to decorate your projects. So these are 3 clear examples, right, of things that you can do with the stamp set. So basically you can create ephemera, and then in here you can create postage stamps that you can use to decorate your projects, which is what I'm doing here, right? So I kind of have a lot of stamps, postage stamps, real ones basically, that I used to use in these sort of projects, but of course once you use them, they're gone, because you cannot reuse them again, right? But these ones, because they are stamps, of course you can stamp as many as you want, and then, well, they'll never end. And if you have a pen pal or a person that shares the same interests as you, like scrapbooking and mixed media, etc., then it's a nice way to actually give them some presents. You know, you can create like a pocket and then fill it with ephemera, and I think they will really appreciate it if it's a handmade ephemera made from you, from these stamps. Well, I'm planning to actually do that for a friend of mine. And yeah, I'll do this as well. So I'm just now adding some other color now. This is olive tree, and this is for the greens. So I like to work with one color at a time, because then I don't need to clean the brush every time. It's just every time that I change color, then I will clean it. So basically I only need to clean it 4 times because I'm using 4 colors, right? So I'm just adding the leaves over there, and then it's basically done, I think. So it will be a matter of cutting everything out and adding a little bit of a vintage look. I'm using my heat tool to dry everything, and then I'm going to cut everything apart. And now everything is cut, so I'm just adding that vintage look using Distress ink, and I'm using Vintage Photo. So I'm adding it to the edges for 2 reasons. I don't want white edges to come, and also it adds some more shadow, and it adds, well, more volume to the actual postage stamps. And the reason why I wanted this is to cover that back side of the notebook. Normally I use the Paperchase notebooks because I kind of, that's a very nice base, like a plain canvas, right? And the color itself is very nice. It's a Kraft color, and then you can, well, you'll see how different it turns out at the end, right? After I add also all those layers. So yeah, and now I'm working on the back side, and then I'm kind of repeating the same, well, the same approach, right, of embossing in gold. And I'm using, in this case, ESC 23, which are the butterflies stamp set, and I'm just adding the 3 of them stacked. I really like to present butterflies that way as well. So now I'm going to add colors, and I'm using satin glaze mixed with infusions. This is to create my own translucent paint, and I'm adding very little of infusions, and then I'm starting to mix and mix. And here you need to really mix very well, because you want the walnut crystals to dissolve, and then the color, you want it homogeneous, because otherwise, well, you will drag the different powders in your image, and then you may see lines that you actually may not want. So that's why I say make sure that it's really well dissolved. And I'm adding those reds on the flowers, and then I'm adding some red also on the back butterfly and the big one. And once I'm done with the red, then I'll move on to a different color, again slate blue, and mixed with some of that satin glaze, and I'm adding that to the small butterflies. And this again is a very quick and easy way to add color to your projects, and it's relatively dry, so you don't, well, disturb the actual cover, because that paper is not super thick. So I mean, it's thicker than regular paper, but it's better if you don't use wet mediums for these sort of things. And now I'm using the yellow. Okay, so I'll put some yellow in the center of each flower. And I think I'm done. Oh yes, a little bit of green as well, of course, for the branch of that flower. And all those leaves. So basically, so far we've done just 2 steps, which is stamping, embossing, and then coloring. And you can do this with any stamps that you want, of course. You don't need to limit yourself to this. And now we are going to add some interest and some more layers. So I'm going to use that script from ESC 18. And I'm going to add some archival ink, because I want an ink that doesn't smear, because I'm going to kind of work later on, well, you'll see, with some sort of glue and medium, gel medium, and I don't want it to smear or anything. So I'm just adding here and there that script, always in the same direction. And then I'll add also that postage stamp mark in different places by hand, because it fell from the acrylic block. And I'm not bothering in inking sometimes, so it's just a mark. I mean, it doesn't need to be absolutely perfect, and I just put it here and there. And you will see that it will kind of fade a little bit once we add more ink and more stuff on top. So I'm repeating the same on the back. And now that it's done, almost done, now I'm going to add the ink. Again, vintage photo. Distress ink, the regular one, and I'm adding from the edges towards the center. Specifically, adding more ink on the edges, because I want my eyes to kind of focus to the center of the page, right? And I'm also adding, well, that on the 4 sides of the notebook, so the 3 sides with the pages as well, and yeah, of course the spine. And this is because, well, anyway, it's inevitable that the actual notebook gets a little bit dirty, so with the ink that I'm using. So if it's gonna get dirty, I'd better control it and add more dirt, so then it's on purpose. And now I'm just cleaning, buffing off the excess of ink on top of the embossing powder so they shine. So that's basically done, and now I'm going to just work on the cover, the final kind of finishing touch, which is adding the different elements from that collage. So that way I'm just covering the Paperchase logo and thingy. You can stay, it's not bad. It doesn't disturb the eye, but I think it also adds a very nice touch to the cover to have that bottom line horizontal versus the 3 butterflies arranged in vertical. So I think it's a nice balance kind of. So I'm using that gel medium by Ranger, and then, well, it sticks super quickly and it's matte finish, but it adds like a layer of protection, and it also highlights on it or enhances the distress ink, so it gives it like a bit of a suede look, especially if you add later on top, as you will see. So the notebook already has changed a lot, hasn't it, from the very beginning. You'll see the pictures at the end of the before and after. So now I'm adding a little bit of that gel medium on everywhere, just a very thin layer. And even if it's thin, it's kind of curving the actual cover, so you need to be careful not to put too much. And then once it's dry, I'm using the heat tool, then I'll turn around and then work on the front cover. So I'm adding that lace over there. You don't have too much time to think about this, because basically, this glue dries super quickly. So if you place it, that's it, it stays. So now I'm going to put that label over there. Well, I'll write the title. And if you stay until the end, you will find surprise. So now I'm adding the little corners. over there, and then I'm applying a generous amount of that gel medium on the corners, so it's kind of 3D at that moment. And the reason is that this dries clear and matte, so you will not see anything, and you just need to place it. I mean, don't force it down, it needs to kind of just stay in touch with the cover, and then it will dry fine. Now everything is dry now, so it's waited like, I don't know, maybe half an hour or something. I mean, I went and cleaned up my working space and so on, and then afterwards I came back to add this final touch, which is adding this dressing coat top, and that gives you the actual finish that is like sweat look. So that's it, super shiny and super vintage style. I hope you like it, and it doesn't have any title here, but in the pictures you will see that it has some wording, and this is for something that will be coming up next for me. So if you stayed until here, you will get like a super small sneak peek of what is coming next. So this is the notebook, and you can see both sides, and also here you can see the before and after and how it has changed from the original notebook. I really love that stripe. I really love those postage stamps and creating things with them. So yeah, I like them very much. And you can see more details here of the background cover, the butterflies and all that layers and goodness. And now this is the front, and you can see the different details on how well everything comes together. And you can see also the little sneak peek of when it's coming next, so stay tuned, because on the 23rd of June you will be able to see where that art journal is coming from. That was all for today. I hope you like it. If you did, please give me a thumbs up and consider subscribing to my YouTube channel if you hadn't done so. And if you don't want to miss any videos, make sure to click the ring bell button, okay? So you'll be notified every time that one thing new comes up. Thanks very much for watching, take care, and I'll see you in the next one, which may be on the 23rd of June, the release day. Bye!